Although escaping from prison is definitely not something we condone, sometimes we can't help but marvel at the ingenuity of criminals who manage to find a way to freedom. Even if escaping from prison is a tale as old as time, the past few years we've seen a great interest from TV producers and publishing houses. So keeping up with the hype, we thought you'd like to see a top 5 of the greatest historical prison breaks. Get ready! Number 1. Escape from the Tower of London. Back in the Elizabethan era, there was an English Jesus priest named John Gerard who was arrested, tried, and found guilty for carrying religious missions during a time when the Catholic Church was under persecution in England. The first prison that they put him in was the Clink Prison, but John was able to meet with other English Catholics and continue his work there. The authorities then decided the notorious Tower of London was the only suitable place for him. He was tortured severely and questioned about the whereabouts of the lodgings of Friar Henry Garnet, but John never broke. There were rumors that he was communicating with people from the outside using invisible ink made from orange juice. And whether this is true or not, we know he definitely was able to communicate with other people, because on the night of October 4th, 1597, John escaped the Tower of London using a rope, despite his hands being badly injured due to the torturing. Not only he escaped himself, but he also managed an escape for his jailer, with whom he became friendly and whom he knew would be held responsible for his escape. After he was a free man again, he continued his work and managed to reconcile lots of people to the Catholic Church. Number 2. Escape from the Libby Prison. This is one of the most famous prison escapes in history, and it took place at the Libby Prison, the most famous prison of the Civil War. This all started in 1864 when a group of 15 Union soldiers who were under the direction of Colonel Thomas E. Rose and Major A.G. Hamilton managed to escape using what was called the rat hole, which was a place that most prisoners and guards avoided. They removed a stone on the first floor, then chipped their way into the adjoining chimney and constructed a very cramped yet effective passage to the basement. The rat hole was covered in 2 feet of straw, which made for the perfect place for them to hide and dig a tunnel. But that wasn't an easy task. As an officer had said, no tongue can tell how the poor fellows passed among the squealing rats, enduring the sickening air, the deathly chill, the horrible interminable darkness. After 17 days of digging, they finally succeeded and broke through to a 50-foot vacant lot on the eastern side of the prison. And then they escaped in groups of 2 and 3 simply by walking out the front gate. After them, 109 more soldiers managed to escape using the same tactic, and although 48 were recaptured, it still remains the most successful prison break of the Civil War. Number 3 is escape from the leads. We might know Giacomo Casanova as being the great lover and ladies' man, but what most people don't know about him was he also managed to escape from prison in a very interesting way. This happened on the 31st of October, 1756. Casanova was jailed in 1753 after gaining a reputation for debauchery and adultery. In Lead's prison, which was named this because it was outfitted with a lead roof in order to make escape impossible. But not for Casanova. He managed to smuggle a metal spike into his cell and persuade a priest that was confined nearby to dig a tunnel through the ceiling of their cells. Once they were through it, they pried open the lead plates on the roof, broke into another room through a window. Then they used ladders and ropes to make it to the ground floor and continued by breaking a lock and sneaking through the prison's corridors, finally escaping using a gondola. All of this can be found in Casanova's memoir, which he later wrote, and it's still available today. Number 4. Escape from the Turkish Prison. You might be familiar with this escape if you've watched the classic 1978 Midnight Express film. Although the events in the film are fictionalized, they were based in the book that Billy Hayes wrote, which is the true story how he escaped a Turkish prison back in the 70s. Billy was arrested after trying to smuggle 2 pounds of hash onto a plane in Turkey, and after he was caught, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. He was put in Sagmilikar for 5 years, and then he was transferred to an island prison on the Sea of Marmara, where he finally had enough and started planning his escape. Although the island had no boats, there was a nearby harbor that would fill with small fishing vessels every time there was a storm. So Billy spent days hiding in a concrete bin, and when he finally had the chance, he swam to the harbor and stole a small boat, then made his way to Greece, then slowly traveled halfway across the world before finally arriving safely back in the good old USA. Number 5. Escape from the Pathet Lao Prison. This is the story of how German-American Navy pilot Dieter Dingler managed to escape a jungle prison camp in Laos during the Vietnam War. He suffered 6 months of torture and was only rescued after 23 days of his escape. But how did this all go down? His plane was shot down, and even though he smashed his survival radio and hid most of the survival equipment, the Vietnamese found him and tied him on the ground to 4 stakes spread-eagled in order to stop any thoughts of escape he'd have. After a failed escape attempt, his captors hung him upside down by his ankles with a nest of biting ants over his face until he lost consciousness. Then he was suspended in a freezing well at night so in case he fell asleep, he would drown. After a lot of horrible torturing, he was eventually brought to a prison camp where he met with 6 other prisoners of war. After hearing one night that the guards were planning on shooting them the next day and make it seem like they tried to escape, they put a plan in action. While the guards were eating, the group slipped out of their handcuffs and foot restraints and grabbed the guards' unattended weapons. Dingler went out first and shot 3 guards who had realized they were escaping, and then the group of 7 prisoners split up in 3 groups. Dingler and another prisoner headed off for the Mekong River with the intention to escape Thailand, but nothing went as planned. After his partner was killed and Dingler managed to evade being caught again, he finally saw a ship approaching and he set a nearby village on fire in order to alert them. But that didn't work either. What finally worked was a parachute that Dingler found, and with it managed to signal an Air Force pilot. His ordeal was finally over, although his psychological trauma never left him until his suicide in 2001. Well, which one of our top 5 historical escapes from prison did you find the riskiest, and which was your favorite? Tell us about it down in the comments.